Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today I wanted to share with you something that was shared with me by Home of HeroQuest fans community member Verg, who had this to present, and this is Hasbro Pack 2024. This seems to be a French page that allows you to enter to win, sort of sweepstakes, no purchase necessary type of game by playing this game of chance, or perhaps there's some strategy or racing involved. I don't know. But what I do know is that my browser didn't like it, and I'm probably not eligible to win anyway because this is in French, and I'm not in France. But there is a list of prizes, and along with that list of prizes is a very telling document. This is a list of EANs. An EAN is like a UPC or a G10. It is a special number that is assigned to a product to make it ready for distribution and sale on web stores and warehouses and anywhere out in the open where anybody would need to be able to scan the product's barcode. No two products have the same EAN or UPC, and the code is unique to represent that item out in the world. Now, this list of EANs is sorted by the EAN descending, which means the oldest products are on the bottom by virtue of new products having a higher EAN than previous ones. And the oldest product on here is Rummikub, which came out in, 2018, 2019, quickly followed by many editions of Monopoly Cheaters Edition. Now, it is possible for a single product to have multiple EANs because there could be different editions of that product, different languages in which that product is released, and all of those will have their own EANs or UPCs to differentiate them from one another. It would be a disaster if you went onto a web store, for example, and decided to order an English version of HeroQuest, only to have a German one shipped to your door. Some might find that pretty cool, but if you didn't speak German and you really needed to play that game that day with your kids and you didn't know how to play and you needed to read the instructions, it would be very frustrating. I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent. The meat of this video is to point out that there are 227 different listings in this document for Avalon Hill. Now, that doesn't mean that there are 227 secret HeroQuest expansions coming out. No. This is all of the EANs assigned to Avalon Hill products since around 2019. And there are many products in here that are repeated because of the different editions and different languages of said products. However, there are still some very telling things on here, and by reviewing this document, I believe we will be setting up everything that we'll be speculating about for the next 3 to 9 months, if not longer. So, heroes, without further ado, let us scour this listing of EANs and see what we can find out about Avalon Hill. First things first, we're going to go up because it goes in order of date, and we're looking at the stuff that we already know about. We see Betrayal at House on the Hill. We see HeroQuest Mythic tier, as well as Robo Rally. We see HeroQuest, all these different editions. Well, this is the same EAN, actually. It's just listed many times. And Axis and Allies, Europe 1940. 1942, second edition, and 1941. We see Diplomacy, we see Betrayal at House on the Hill, Widow's Walk, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, Betrayal at House on the Hill Legacy. We see the heroic tier of HeroQuest. We see Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, and then we start to get into HeroQuest expansion, Return of the Witchlord and Keller's Keep, before kind of weaving in and out of the other Avalon Hill properties around this time. We get a lot of different EANs for HeroQuest, kind of suggesting the different languages in which it is released. More entries for Diplomacy, and then the Frozen Horror, which we did learn about pretty early on in HeroQuest's life. We get to the Yuletide Tale and Betrayal the Werewolf's Journey. HeroQuest the Rogue Heir of Elithorn. More Frozen Horror. The Mage of the Mirror Quest Pack. The Yawning Portal. Rise of the Dreadmoon. And then we get HeroScape Age of Annihilation Vanguard. Now, this is important because it highlights the fact that although you can go out and register for an EAN or multiple EANs, dozens of them, hundreds of them, in advance to prepare for the release of something that may or may not have several different editions once it is approved, several different expansions, DLC, things like that. In video game, publishers do this all the time, register things in advance of them actually coming out. It doesn't mean that there's actually going to be a product behind it. There may be a crowdfund that's going on that fails miserably because of poor pricing points or just terrible business models from parent companies. I'm not talking about anything specific, though. It's worth knowing, of course, at this point that HeroScape is back. It was taken on by Renegade Games, and they have all but conquered their means for distribution and how they're going to release it. So it's actually ready now. You can go and check out Renegade Games. There's no crowdfund. There are 3 different HeroScape products to check out and buy. If you didn't know about that already, I have a video about it here on the channel, but there's no need to watch that. Just go search HeroScape, Renegade, and you'll find them. You'll be able to play HeroScape. There's no doubt about it now. So thank you to Renegade for that. But just to illustrate the point that just because the EANs are on here and registered doesn't mean that it's going to have a physical release factually after it. Just that the EANs are registered. So this is great for speculation, but very, very bad for 100% predictions, even though the stuff that's on here, I think, is pretty reputable. As long as it's not being crowdfunded, I think it's something that's going to be released. Avalon Hill Talisman Core comes up next, and this pretty much, we already know about this. We knew Talisman Core was coming. It's very nice to see it in this document, especially kind of seeing the numbers, how the numbers fall. Talisman Core was actually registered, or at least put in as an EAN before Path of the Wandering Monk. And, that makes sense. That tracks because they would have had to have worked on it quite a bit longer, a little bit farther back than they would just to have a HeroQuest expansion pack. Not necessarily a total full expansion, but a Hero Collection expansion. Path of the Wandering Monk, Talisman Core, and then the Spirit Queen's Torment and Prophecy of Talor quest packs make an appearance. Betrayal, the Yuletide Tale. HeroQuest Ogre Horde quest pack comes up after this. And Ogre Horde quest pack, does that name sound familiar to you? It did to me. It's the exact naming convention used by all of those stores that had the Ogre Horde up early. And now this can kind of shed some light for all of the people left in the dark about why storefronts get different product pages up and kind of where they draw that information from. There were some folks saying this is fake because it had the wrong naming convention. It wasn't called Ogre Horde Quest Pack, therefore it's fake. The store pages pull these EANs and they can see that they're registered. So they have, just like the distributors or the manufacturers rather, having these EANs registered in advance of the actual physical product existing, decided to make store pages in advance of having the physical product in stock. This is a very practical practice. It makes sense to do. And usually when you see these storefront listings, these pages up, even if they're placeholder, they're highly indicative of something that is real, that is coming, as long as it's not the crowdfund that's being, I will never stop being salty about that. I'm not talking about anything in specific though. It also illustrates a point that I want to make, that just because the description says HeroQuest Ogre Horde Quest Pack, that's not indicative of the final title of the product that is actually being released. It can stay the description because this is likely something that can't be changed once it's registered. And so at some point it could be, intentionally left sort of vague or placeholder, or in beta version, alpha version, whatever you want to say. But the actual title of the product itself could be different from the description here. This is still an EAN that existed, and the description that pulls when you view this registry is HeroQuest Ogre Horde Quest Pack. So something to keep in mind for the very near future, because we're about to see some stuff that's going to blow your mind. HeroQuest Jungles of Delthrak. For those of you who were still insisting that this was fake and calling those people who blindly believed it being real fools, well, welcome to being the pot calling the kettle black. Stores don't put up these listings erroneously. They don't do so because of rumors or because there's buzz about a certain product in anticipation of ordering the product. They pull from resources that exist. They have credible connections. They have business relationships with people, and they pull this information from sources just like this. HeroQuest Jungles of Delthrak appears on this official Hasbro document, which is all the evidence that I would possibly ever need to be able to say this is 100% without a doubt real. And it's sort of a tangent that I've gone on in the past, and I apologize for going into it right now. Jungles of Delthrak has unfortunately been mired in conspiratorial thinking because people question the legitimacy of the box art, and that is one of the strangest, most bizarre things to do ever. It defies rationality because there is no box art. The box art doesn't exist, at least it's not public facing. No, what we have is a placeholder image, and people have identified that there's a miniature badly photoshopped in the corner, and the placeholder image source is an Adobe products stock image that you can find, and all of this is fine and factual, but does nothing to spite anything. This is a placeholder image, and more than likely no matter how badly people don't want to admit it, it was probably used internally. And that miniature that is badly photoshopped in the corner wasn't done because anybody was trying to fool someone into thinking it was an official expansion, but because that's the way the visual elements were arranged onto the placeholder image as a mock-up to be submitted to departments higher than the person who did the mock-up to be able to get approval for them to continue working on the visual. So the fact that we got a snippet without context released along with the Jungles of Delthrak title doesn't mean that we're getting a final picture of anything. I do kind of think that the miniature in the corner is going to be a miniature that is actually with the expansion. I don't know that the arm that we're seeing of that miniature is the final version of that pose. It's all very much under a subject to change environment, and I think that we can all respect that. But Jungles of Delthrak is something that's going to appear in some form, and this may not be its final title as evidenced by the Ogre Horde quest pack registry. Jungles of Delthrak could be something like Death in the Jungles of Delthrak or Surviving Delthrak. It could be anything at this point, really. The actual title of the expansion, not 100% proofed, but I'm really happy to see that this is coming out. That's not the most interesting thing in this document, and we're going to get to those other 3 interesting things right now. Talisman Alliances is actually one of those 3 things. Talisman Alliances tells me that Avalon Hill's not looking at the traditional release the 4 corners of the board expansions. The title of this kind of indicates to me that they're going a different direction, which is strange because nowhere else in this document do we have expansions for Talisman that would indicate those 4 traditional board corner expansions. So that's kind of strange to me. It makes me wonder if it's possible, unlikely, however unlikely, if it is possible, and I do think that it's possible, that Avalon Hill have decided to take those 4 corners, the city, the dungeon, the woods, and the highlands, and just put them in the base game. Just put them right in the box to be used optionally. I think that would be really amazing if they did that, but I'm not totally sure. Alliances kind of sounds like, well, like it maybe could be a sort of character expansion. And it could very well be the 4 corners of the board, one of those 4, 2 of the 4. Either one of those conventions has worked in the past, so they could do that again. And just call it Alliances for lore reasons that we don't know yet that are particular to the 5th edition of Talisman. Whatever it is, I'm looking forward to it. I want more information, and I want it. I want it in my hands. Betrayal Deck of Lost Souls. I think we know about this already. Betrayal Pennywise Papers. I don't know if this is referring to Pennywise from It, or if there's a different association here, but interesting and horrifying. HeroQuest The Spirit Queen's Torment quest pack, as well as the Ogre Horde quest pack making another appearance. Jungles of Delthrak making a few more appearances. That's right, in order of EAN, the Jungles of Delthrak made an appearance before Spirit Queen's Torment, which makes sense because it tracks that they would be working on the Jungles of Delthrak at the same time that they would be working on getting the Spirit Queen's Torment into a releasable sort of physical re-release form. Interesting thing number 2, HeroQuest First Light. There's no context here. We don't know what this is. We don't know what this means. It could be anything. It could be a pair of shoes where the bottom of the shoes lights up, and that's your first light. It could be a novel. It could be a choose your own adventure novel. That would actually be really, really cool. Yeah, I kind of doubt that. HeroQuest First Light, the appearance of this makes me wonder if Jungles of Delthrak is the dwarf expansion re-realized, made into a tangible form using the design notes of old, and if First Light is perhaps the wizard expansion and just reimagined, perhaps using those notes, perhaps using some of the creations that were supposed to go in, the expansions of old that could have been in 94, when it all went south and all we got was the Frozen Horror in Mage of the Mirror. I think it's very possible, but it's also possible that Jungles of Delthrak and First Light are both completely, entirely new IP added to HeroQuest's legacy from Avalon Hill in the same vein as Rise of the Dreadmoon. Whatever this is, I am very excited about it. I can't show that on my face because I've been through this video about 16 times this morning, different takes, different stopping points, thinking, nope, I've ruined it, go back. This is the take that's going to make it, but I am very excited about HeroQuest First Light. So once I've recharged, we'll be doing videos speculating what this could be, which will be pretty worthless because we've only got these 3 pieces of information right here, but we're going to do it anyway. And First Light, again, doesn't have to be the final title of this. I would say, based on demonstrated convention thus far, that this will probably make it onto a few placeholder websites, so just expect that. And when you see it, don't call it out as fake. This is an official Hasbro document. The last really interesting thing on here for Avalon Hill fans, premium card game W40K. What game do you know of that has an acronym of W40K? Is it Whetstone 40 Knives? No. Is it Wake Up 40 Kittens? No. That does sound like an Avalon Hill game, though. I'll give that to you. That does sound. Is it Whack 40 Kobolds? I wish. That sounds like a really cool game, actually. It's like Whack-A-Mole, but there's kobolds coming up out of the holes, and there's like a dice roll mechanic and a level up mechanic. And there are mage kobolds, and there are kobold champions. Sorry, get carried away. Premium card game, Warhammer 40K. Warhammer 40K. For those of you who don't think that Avalon Hill and Games Workshop could come to sort of any kind of collaboration, you missed the entire part about Talisman, because Talisman remains a Games Workshop product. And if you don't believe me, and you've got Talisman 4th edition or 4th edition revised, which are Fantasy Flight and Pegasus Spiel games, go grab your copy of the game, turn it around, and read the back of the box. The Games Workshop disclaimer is still there. Well, it won't be when I erase it and just scrub it away. Games Workshop are pretty liberal with allowing people to license their products, their work. Warhammer Quest was licensed to Fantasy Flight Games so that they could make Warhammer Quest the adventure card game. Premium card game W40K from Avalon Hill is something that I would support. I want to see. I think that it's really, really cool to see this. And if ever at any point in your adult nerd life you have said, well, maybe since HeroQuest has come out, Avalon Hill and Games Workshop could collaborate and make X or Y thing, then you actually are very valid right now. I see you. And I think Avalon Hill sees you as well. And this might open up a lot of discussions as to, well, the old advanced HeroQuest can of worms should probably pop back up now. As unlikely as I think that it is for Games Workshop to give Avalon Hill the go-ahead to produce anything advanced HeroQuest, that's not because I think it has anything to do with the property. I just think that it's less likely because they focus their efforts into revising advanced HeroQuest into Warhammer Quest. And I don't think that Avalon Hill would necessarily reach out to license advanced HeroQuest, because the original advanced HeroQuest didn't hardly have anything at all to do with HeroQuest, but it does have relevance in the classic days because people who liked one thing were expected to like the other. It had the same name. Maybe if people like the old game, they'll like that we make a board game that encourages them to buy our Skavens in separate blister packs. Let's do that. Oh, it doesn't work? All right, well, let's move on and make another game. But it is possible, and this Venn diagram draws ever closer to being something that is connected instead of two separate circles and not a Venn diagram at all. Because you can't get much more Games Workshop than Warhammer 40K. That's extremely Games Workshop. Still, it's really difficult to know if Advanced HeroQuest could be released free and clear, or if it would be caught up in entanglements. But it doesn't look like it's going to be anything that happens anytime soon, because it doesn't have an EAN associated with it. So Betrayal at Baldur's Gate and Betrayal the Yuletide Tale and HeroQuest Jungles of Delthrak are the only things left on here besides Betrayal the Werewolf's Journey. Really cool to see that being an EAN that I think is going to be relevant in 2024. HeroQuest The Rogue Heir of Elithorn looks like it might be getting another edition, so a re-release perhaps. Same content, I would imagine, same everything, just another, all right, let's put it out there for people who want it. And it's really good to see that here as a really late EAN, because I know that the Rogue Heir has been sold out on Hasbro Pulse, or at least hasn't been available to buy there for a long time. And there are a lot of people asking about that. And there are a lot of people asking about the Wandering Monk as well, the Path of the Wandering Monk expansion, because it seems kind of like those were one and done, and now people are having a tough time getting them from different sources. They're still out there. They're still in stock in a lot of different stores, but it doesn't look like those stocks are getting replenished, which is really weird. I don't want to say things are going out of print. I don't really believe in that language necessarily. I think Avalon Hill is here to continue supplying the games so long as they remain profitable in some manner. I still think the accessibility is very, very important to them. I don't know that it's practical for them to continue releasing in all languages, and I bring that up because I've seen where some people are seeing out of stock for languages other than English in different storefronts. So I can't speak to that, and it makes me sad to think that the other language versions of HeroQuest would no longer be available to those places that want them. It also makes me sad to know that it's not available in every territory that speaks English as a first language, and that people have to wait forever and a day to get the product to their doorstep, or to even be able to order it to begin with without paying outrageous, exorbitant customs fees and shipping. I don't have the answer for that stuff, and I wish that Hasbro/Avalon Hill did. But HeroQuest Jungles of Delthrak, First Light, and the Warhammer K 40K game, as well as Talisman alliances, are all of the things that interest me greatly about this list of EANs. So discuss below what you think about this. Every comment, every little piece of engagement helps. Share the video. Subscribe to my channel if you think that this is your cup of tea. Check out a couple of other videos. If you really want to support the channel, just go watch another one because the algorithm loves that stuff. And if you really, really want to support the channel, you can be just like this list of awesome people who actually go to my Patreon and subscribe at maybe even around the $1.50 a month mark. You'll get some cool Discord stuff, and your name will appear in the credits of the video. Don't thank me, thank my sponsors for helping me make this possible. Here they are. Until next time, brave heroes, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.